what is sort of like big fintech not getting about the power of entrepreneurship and creativity and just the need that people have on the ground? And why is this such a big opportunity?
So, yeah, there's a huge opportunity to serve the African region and the global majority in general as well, because this really is the only growth market in the world. What was big tech not getting, was big finance not getting? It's not understanding that copy-paste doesn't work. You cannot take what works in a global minority region and paste it into the global majority.
Hey, this is Sam. Today's episode is a special one that was recorded last week in London. We were fortunate enough to be invited by the Stellar Development Foundation, which is, Stellar is a blockchain that really is focused on the payments ecosystem around the global majority and folks who don't have sophisticated payment rails. And we were there interviewing and talking to a lot of great founders and creators and entrepreneurs. And this conversation has stuck with me since we had it last week. It is with Yele Bademosi. He is the CEO and the co-founder of Nestcoin, which is a Web3 development and investment firm based in Nigeria. And also on it is Gwera Kiwana. Gwera is the vice president of Africa's largest digital payments gateway, which is called Onafriq. And my co-host for this is Christine Lee, who's one of our lead anchors here at CoinDesk. And we had just watched a conversation with Idris Elba and a bunch of folks from the African region on the creator side who were really just talking about how both difficult it is to be a creator in the African region, but also what an opportunity it is to be able to bring access and tooling to this group. And so this conversation with Yele and Gwera just really struck me as an important one for us to bring to everyone on Gen C for two reasons. One is we spend a lot of time on the show and in general focusing on the 48% of the world who really has access to robust technologies and sort of financial solutions and aren't plagued with a lot of the inherent challenges that go on in the other 52% of the world, the global majority. And yet, when I was speaking with Yele and Gwera, I couldn't help but think this is the next future, that folks in Africa and Southeast Asia and Latin America, and the ones who have not had the privilege of the access we might have in the States or in Europe, as they start getting onboarded to all of these systems we're building, all these tools we're giving them, it has the opportunity to create a true revolution that can change so many lives. I was really inspired by this conversation. And even though it is not specifically about what we always talk about on Gen C, I thought it was great for us to bring a different perspective, one which is from two people who are bringing folks on in a region that is exploding right now in opportunity, with millions and millions of people looking at everything from stablecoins to being creators to gaming to all these different segments. And I just wanted to get a sense of what was happening on the ground in Africa from two people who are trying to build the future there. So enjoy this conversation, and we'll see you next week on an all-new Gen C.
Let's talk about Nigeria. Years of economic mismanagement and low oil prices have triggered a crippling shortage of dollars in this crude-rich country. To address this problem, in May of 2023, foreign exchange restrictions were relaxed to encourage foreign investment, which had the effect of causing their national currency, the Naira, to lose 70% of its value. Maybe crypto can solve this? Joining us now to discuss building in Nigeria is Yele Bademosi. He's the CEO and co-founder of Nestcoin, a Web3 development and investment firm, and Gwera Kiwana. She's the blockchain vice president at Africa's largest digital payments gateway, Onafriq. Welcome, Gwera and Yele, to the show.
Thanks for having us.
Nice to be here.
Perhaps you can humanize this currency crisis. How is it impacting people in their everyday lives?
Yeah, good question. I think one of the things that has been happening over the last sort of couple of years, and I think this is not just Nigeria, it's happening across, multiple African countries and, other global majority markets as well. But fundamentally, what is going on is that you're seeing the currency devalue. And you also have corresponding rampant inflation, which makes it a lot difficult and harder for people to sort of get by and access the goods and services that they used to have access to. So you have, economies that already had significant poverty rates, and people are kind of going deeper into poverty. And that is a significant challenge. So people that used to take things like Ubers or taxis are having to walk. People can't afford sort of basic necessities. And I think this is what makes us bullish about the on-chain economy, which is not really about, your geographical location. So even though you're physically in a particular country, you can kind of migrate your finances and, your ability to access economic opportunities regardless of where you are.
Mm-hmm. So I understand that people in their pursuit of more financial stability, they're seeking stablecoins among various options and U.S. dollar-backed stablecoins. And is the government trying to stop this? Because I understand they have very strict capital controls in the country.
Yeah, so I think if we just zoom out and look at the reason as to why life is the way it is now and the currency is the way it is, the Naira, the Nigerian currency, was quite dependent on the price of oil. And the government did the right thing, which the central bank did the right thing, which they floated the currency last year, which, if you're an economist, that's, you're trying to fix things. But that resulted in a tank of the Naira. And everyday people have been impacted, not just oil imports, exports. And this has resulted in, yes, people seeking flight, right? And there's definitely capital controls in Nigeria and across, regions, the regions we work in, to avoid that capital flight. And stablecoins have proven to be a democratized way of anyone with an internet connection and a phone can access money that is going to help them hedge for inflation, or even as as Nigeria and Africa itself is becoming more open to the global ecosystem and e-commerce, people want access to Netflix, they want access to Starlink, they want to pay for these things, and we're seeing that people are using stablecoins or stablecoin-backed products to do this.
Mm-hmm. But is the government, I guess, trying to stop people from using stable coins and have access to cryptocurrencies?
I mean, yeah, please take that on.
Yeah, so I think there's actually been positive developments on the regulatory side. Mm-hmm. Nigeria, South Africa have released their crypto regulation. And I do know that one of the sort of companies that got a license is actually a local stablecoin project, mm-hmm. right? So I think generally, like Gwera said, the governments understand that, they're trying to stabilize the currency, and they floated sort of the currency, and it is, significant and growing pains. But, I think compared to maybe 3 or 4 years ago, we didn't have a lot of regulatory clarity and things like that. And so there's definitely sort of more willingness to engage and understand the space. And so I think overall, there is sort of progress. It's still, a challenge. It's the same thing in the US and a lot of global markets. But I think we're heading in the right direction is what I would say.
What really sort of piques my interest, and this starts to some degree with yesterday's conversation with Idris Elba and the creators that were there, which sounds like similar challenges in Ghana, and that this is not a Nigerian problem. This is an African problem, and frankly, a global majority problem. But it sounds like what both of you are working in Nestcoin and Onafriq is really trying to say, not also just about just the hyper-regionality, but how do we create and rewrite entire systems? And I guess I'm interested in, Gwera, I would love for you to start on this because you guys have hundreds of millions of wallets that have touched people right now across the continent and elsewhere. What is sort of like big fintech not getting about the power of entrepreneurship and creativity and just the need that people have on the ground? And why is this such a big opportunity?
So, yeah, there's a huge opportunity to serve the African region and the global majority in general as well, because this really is the only growth market in the world. What is big tech not getting? What is big finance not getting? It's not understanding that copy-paste doesn't work. You cannot take what works in a global minority region and paste it into the global majority. We've seen really great innovations like PIX in Brazil, UPI in India, the BVN in Nigeria, that are helping bank people and really just thoughtful, localized solutions. And crypto is something that, the blockchain is something that has immense impact and the ability to change lives. Because if you think about any innovation in the context of the global majority, most innovations were brought to us, right? We had to tailor them for our own use later on. And we've seen leapfrogging. So like, for example, landlines were leapfrogged to mobile phones. But crypto and blockchain in general is because of its democratized nature, it's the first time a technology has reached the global majority at the same time that it reached the global minority. And we've seen bifurcation of use cases. So instead of, building for, hype cycles and speculative use cases, we definitely are pushing and seeing traction in more utility. So in the work we do at Onafriq, the way that we use crypto is just definitely under the hood. Our customers don't know, or our end users and businesses that we work with don't need to know that a stablecoin is providing the cross-border payment. They just know that it costs a little bit less to send money to mom every month. And what Yele is working on with Nestcoin as well, incredibly, targeting a young and very technologically savvy population to leverage this stuff. So I think we need to see more builders like Yele and in the region who are catering to the unique needs that we find in the regions that we work in.
Maybe Yele can go into what you're doing with Nestcoin.
Yeah, I would love to piggyback on that. I think, there are landmark sort of companies that people know, like M-Pesa, and there are, things like Nubank, right? So with Nestcoin, we've created Onboard, and you can think of Onboard as a on-chain neobank. As Gwera said, targeting sort of like digitally savvy, people from the global majority market. So not just Nigeria, we're looking at Africa, Latin, Southeast Asia, and India. And the truth is, a lot of people are using stablecoins, right? If you're a creator, a developer, a builder, and you're working with someone globally, you'll probably want to get paid in stable coins instead of like the local currency, right? So we offer a very simple application that allows you to, get paid in stable coins. In the next few weeks, we're actually launching USD and Euro accounts that when that gets sent to you, it auto converts into sort of like stable coins like USDC on Base and like other networks. And the non-custodial wallet also comes with a card, which allows you to spend your crypto like you'll be able to spend money in a bank account, right? And this is available to anyone, anywhere, right? So for us, like we're literally taking world-class financial services and democratizing access to it to the people that need it the most, because we believe that when we bring people in the global majority markets on chain, they can live radically better lives.
I want to double click on what both of you said, because I think it's frankly so important. And for our community and for an event like this is, I think, where this stuff really comes out. But Gwera, you mentioned the fact that this idea of programmable money can hit the US at the same time it hits Africa, and a smart programmer, developer, entrepreneur can build at the same rate and really create opportunity for themselves. I was listening to a podcast last night with Bill Gates, and he was talking about, similarly, he said AI and blockchain are the things that hit the world at the same time, and are creating opportunities that people don't recognize are going to change the world dramatically. And when people look at India and Southeast Asia and Africa and don't recognize the power of what those markets will bring with entrepreneurship, it does shock me, I think, that folks on Twitter are still focused on the price of ETH, right? and so I just want to commend both of you on what you're working on. I would love, Gwera, can you tell us a little bit more also, but just generally what Onafriq does? I think we heard about Nestcoin, which is amazing. Would love to hear about more what you do. And then are you working together in interesting ways? Like how does this happen as a continent?
So Onafriq is Africa's largest payment gateway. So we've been around about 15 years now. So by no means a crypto company, definitely a fintech and a financial services company. And we over the years have built an incredible network that is across 40 countries. We have access to about 500 million in mobile money wallets. So mobile money being the leading, or at least fastest growing way of digital money, e-money in the region. And roughly 200 million bank accounts as well. So the concept is that that network is something that we leverage for anyone who needs to move money in, out, or around Africa. Some of the best use cases we've seen are intra-Africa trade, intra-Africa remittances, as well as obviously the global minority to global majority aid and investment. But we're now seeing an uptick in money going the other way, which 10, 15 years ago was not the case. Africa was a net receiver. And we're starting to see more funds leaving the region. And this is, as simple as I said, for example, we power Spotify, PayPal, people wanting to, have access to Starlink, to AWS. But as the rhetoric of Africa rising is what we've grown up with. And Onafriq is definitely an example of a company that is driving the Africa has risen story and enabling access. So we work with some of the largest exchanges in the region. We're constantly trying to understand how we can compliantly engage with crypto, and are in constant dialogue with our regulators as well. So a lot of what I've done is trying to bring this new technology to a legacy company, and really, in the end of the day, like my thesis is that we don't need to be watching the price of ETH. We just should be following what the impact and what the actual utility of this new technology is. And Yele is someone who I've known and really admired throughout over the time I've been in this ecosystem. And a lot of builders in this space are needing rails to mobile money for on and off ramping. So that's something that we do right now as well.
I wonder how Stellar fits into the picture in your projects.
Yeah, very happy to answer that. So something that Stellar does that is quite remarkable is the fact that they have this partnership with MoneyGram that allows anyone to sort of receive USDC and then off-ramp it into, all the agents and networks that MoneyGram supports, right? So for us, that's kind of like what actually connected us with the Stellar ecosystem. I was fortunate enough to meet Danielle, and we kind of talked about what they're trying to do in terms of real-world use cases. And to be honest, like before the global majority markets began to become more, it's not the most talked about topic in crypto, but it's definitely not sort of as low as on the radar as it was maybe 3 or 4 years ago. And Stellar's definitely been active, deploying capital, supporting entrepreneurs. So for us at Onboard, like the opportunity as we kind of think about, being this on-chain neobank and integrating various networks and rails that can allow users to go from sort of digital money or stable coins to sort of real-world fiat money, like that's kind of like where that partnership, plays a significant sort of role and opportunity for us.
Mm-hmm.
And I know, Yele, with Nestcoin, your visions are not just Africa. I know you're looking at LATAM. I know you're looking at Southeast Asia as well. So what have you learned from what you're doing that you think will also apply to those other regions?
Yeah, I think the most important thing is like, when people talk about Africa, they kind of think of Africa as like Africa, but it's so diverse. So we've been quite humble in our approach, in that we don't think that we know. In fact, we know nothing about like these markets, right? So a big part of our strategy has been identifying what we call regional champions, who essentially are co-creators of, the network that we term like Onboard's Alliance, right? So literally in every single market they were in, we're identifying sort of influential builders and creators to be the one driving Onboard in their local regions. So right now we're in about 30 cities globally, and we also think city first, right? So we don't even think like country, we think city first, right? So, and it's such an interesting sort of like approach and way to think about, the world as sort of like a network of cities. And that's probably been one of the most insightful things. And, someone in India wants to come on chain because they feel like a lot of the digital innovation and fintech has been solved because you have things like UPI and Aadhaar system. In Latin America, massive devaluation issues. In Africa, it's sort of like a challenge in receiving like FX. And probably one of the most surprising things is that even in Europe, Eastern Europe and sort of the big, popular investment markets like the UK and France, they feel like they're completely overlooked by sort of, investment capital. So if you're trying to build a fintech in Europe and you're in like Latvia or Romania, like, you're not going to get access to capital. So even in the US as well, like we found there are regions that people feel like they're undeserved and disconnected, and they feel like they've not gotten the lot, or like the best luck in life, right? And so it's just really interesting how, regardless of where you are, people feel this discomfort with the status quo, and they're looking for opportunities to exit status quo. And that's why, like, our vision at Onboard is literally to allow anyone, anywhere, to be able to come on chain and live a radically better life. And we truly believe that, and everyone that is a part of our ecosystem also believes that as well. And I think you guys also do also. So, yeah.
I'm curious, regionally, where are you seeing the most activity on your platform on Onafriq?
Do you know what? It's Pan-African. Obviously, the obvious answer is Nigeria, which is the most populous country. But I'd like to maybe point my attention to a region that is not so well known and we're seeing a lot more traction, a lot of adoption, is Francophone Sub-Saharan Africa. So it's not just one country; it's an entire region, and one that is growing in terms of young populations. Again, technically savvy, and I definitely like the DRC, Cameroon, Senegal, Cote d'Ivoire, Benin. There's regions like this that are really showing quite a lot of promising hockey stick type growth and need as well for services like ours. But yeah,
it's interesting because are you seeing that they're completely skipping the PC area and going straight to crypto or blockchain?
Mobile has completely, like leapfrogged computers. People don't, like most people, a young, smart person in, say, Kinshasa, DRC, probably doesn't have a laptop. They have a mobile phone, though, and they have a smartphone which is connected to a mobile money wallet, which has got a MetaMask wallet possibly attached to that, and is likely doing a gig job on something like Fiverr, and they need to get paid, or maybe they need to watch Netflix every day, and they're using their mobile phone to do this. So, yes, there's definitely a leapfrogging that has happened. I mean, I don't like that term very much because it's quite cliche, but it's definitely like a carving a different path is what we're seeing.
And I think, like, I genuinely believe that in a lot of global majority markets, there'll be young sort of adults or like teens who would have a sort of on-chain wallet, before they have a bank account, right? Like the same way how people have email addresses when they first come online. I think that a lot of people, as they begin to come on chain for the first time and they're beginning to like earn, they would have on-chain wallets, right? And it's sort of like you said, like it's a bit of a shame that people are watching like prices of these assets, but I watched the Vitalik's documentary, and I've kind of accepted that the price action is actually a feature, not a bug. It pulls people in, and it's a massive kind of like awareness filter. and then people who, we use this term like new gen internally at Onboard, and for us is basically the new generation or the next generation of builders and creators who are coming on chain not because of the speculation, but because they see that on-chain represents a radically better creative reality and that they can build the future that they want and then they can impact it, right? And so we really want to sort of push and celebrate this subculture. You know, we didn't create it, but it's definitely something that we're seeing across the global majority markets. So it's pretty, I think even at DEF CON, there's a GM day, and these are some of the, and basically just means global majority markets. And there's a lot of like these types of conversations, and you know, Ethereum is also taking like you know, awareness around it, and like, you know, like Stellar is doing amazing work. And I think we're seeing more and more folks, you know, begin to realize that this path is a much more sustainable one for the whole on-chain economy.
Awesome. Well, Yele, Gwera, thank you so much for joining us. That was Nestcoin CEO Yele Bademosi and Onafriq Blockchain Vice President Gwera Kiwana. Up next, we head over to Central America, where a charity is using sport to unite kids.